5 days in Bhubaneswar, National Junior Athletics Championship, numerous meet records, personal best भी हुए, but वो national record कहीं ना कहीं I think एक भी नहीं हो पाया अभी तक तो. World Championship qualification breach हुए काफी athletes से. अगर in your opinion, what stood out the most for you from this edition of this National Junior Athletics Championship?
Like if you keep whatever you said, if you keep if you keep everything on the side, the marks and the meet records being shattered, and most of the athletes are probably the ones that really deserved it, breaching the qualification marks for the Eugene World Junior Championships. I think what really stands out is, this whole color of a national junior athletic championships, this whole aspiration, the whole ambition of athletes. For me, that is probably something that really stands out. You don't see that so much in a senior athletics. You don't see, parents coming here. You don't see coaches getting into this huddle trying to figure out from whatever little data and analytics they have in trying to figure out which are the athletes that are doing well. And always remember, and I think that's what we keep talking about, people who finish on the top of the podium, the ones that probably go on and become athletes in the senior section or probably go on and represent India. They're sometimes the ones who finish second, third, fourth, they are the ones who also kind of improve over the years. So I think for me, it was this whole festival atmosphere of a national junior athletics. You had 97 finals. I mean, like, can you even imagine having a 97 finals and plus 2,000 plus athletes? So I think that's what really stands out. The marks, meet marks being shattered, going and getting those or breaching the qualification marks. I think that's part of the competition. What really stands out for me is always this whole the competitive streak that comes into junior athletes in the under 14, under 16, under 18, under 20 categories. That really stands out.
And but do you feel Indian juniors are finally closing the gap on those Asian stage or the world stage? Not just participating, but actually competing for medals.
I think Subhashish, all of us really need to understand that apart from the increase in the athletic ability, in the competitive streak or the competitive, most of these athletes that they have between themselves, I think what also showcases is the increase in coaching ability. All the coaches who understand various states, most of them are coming. I mean, it's brilliant to see all of them together sitting on tables, trying to understand, going on to the stands, screaming away, shouting away for their own athletes. I think that really is the big thing. Apart from that, yes, gaps at the Asian levels will close. The rest of the countries, I mean, when you look at China, when you look at Japan, when you look at the Korean athletes, I think it takes a little bit of time. That will take a little bit of time. The world levels are very different. That's a very, very different universe. Now, that is just not on the athlete. That really comes down to the kind of coaching ability you're willing to give. That really comes down to the kind of science you bring in for the athletes. That really comes down to the exposure that these athletes over the next 2, 3, 4 years will get abroad, or the kind of coaching ability or the kind of coaches we get in here to be able to coach these youngsters, to be able to tell them that this is not the end, that a national gold medal or a national junior silver or a bronze is not the end in terms of, we have won something. You've got to take a large step, that big step to the seniors, and from there to a continental level. Those are main things.
And sir, passing या बात करें, in 100 meter he missed the world qualification by 0.01 seconds. Semis में I think he did 10.51. In finals he did 10.52. But in long jump he finally breached the world championship qualification. So अगर आप इसको देखें, how rare is that kind of performance under pressure?
No, that's huge, because you also got to understand that Parth flew in from Taiwan, and then he there was no direct flight anyway, and then he comes in here. He does 3 races. He gets into the 100. There are 2 false starts, if we remember, and then he still manages to get a good start and go in. His finishing is very good. Of course, I don't think he was ready to take part in the 200. It would have been really interesting to have him see what's happening in the 200. The long jump was brilliant. I think he is one of those rare athletes who loves doing the 100 and also loves doing the long jump. In India, you have very few. I can't remember off my head that who was the last who's at least in the junior or even in the senior ranks who's done the 100 and the long jump. Of course, worldwide, there's one big name who was recently in Delhi, Carl Lewis, who's done the long jump as well as the 100. And before that, 36 Olympics, we all remember Jesse Owens. But as I said, that's a different universe. What I want to understand is as how does he progress now? I think there are academies who are after him. I could see a few of them, speaking to him. And now it's his call. Parth's future lies where he wants to go, whether he wants to come here to India or whether he wants to train in Taiwan with the coach he already has, who's taken him to this level. And from there on, I mean, whatever little chat I had with him, he does understand the American universities. He does understand the coaching out there is of a very different level. But yes, if you really talk about talent, he has it.
And the world under 20 qualification standards are tough. How impressive is that these athletes met or even better those marks at a domestic meet?
Listen, we also have to be realistic. Breaching a qualification mark doesn't automatically make you the best in the world. It probably doesn't even take you into the top 8, top 10, top 15, top 20 of the world. There are countries out there whose coaching standards are much, much higher. I think the main thing is somehow that you breached the qualification mark. Now the marks set if you are going to Eugene, I mean that's also another story. I mean the AFI has to say there are other parameters that will come into play by the time Eugene comes around next year. But I think the main thing is how you improve from here. And after that, I think it's a personal best in Eugene if you can probably do that. The last great run, whatever you could see, was Hima Das at the juniors, and then before
Yeah.
that, Neeraj Chopra. These are athletes who really conquered worlds at the juniors, and I think if these athletes who have breached the mark can now start increasing their capacity in terms of the timings and the throws and the distances, I think then, breaching the qualification mark is probably gives them the right motivation.
And these performances didn't happen overnight. What changes have you noticed in India's junior athletics ecosystem, coaching, facilities, and or federation support?
Listen, you have to give credit all the way. I mean, it's not easy to do a tournament like this, a competition like this. It's been virtually seamless. We all see a lot of national competitions. I do go for international competitions. The comparisons may be a little off the mark, but I think this was a very seamless competition. The way the AFI organizes it, the way the Odisha host comes in and does most of the work, I think it's brilliant on both their parts. So it's you have to give a lot of credit to AFI. It's not easy. It's really not easy. Sometimes we can't even organize 100, 200 people together. You got 2,000 athletes out here, 97 finals. It's tough. I mean, I can't even get it over my head that you got 97 finals over under 14, 16, 18, and 20. Now, how do you put them in the mix? How do you put them, through a sieve, and then finally coaches sit down and look at all the data? The most important part, Subhashish, is how strongly are you looking at the data of the athletes? Because as I said, there will be athletes who will probably jump from fourth to first. The first might even come down to sixth in the next couple of years. So those data become important.
Last couple of questions, sir. What should be, in your opinion, what should be India's realistic expectation at the World U20 Championship next year? Medals, personal best, or just exposure, in your opinion?
I think all the three. I mean, you always go into a competition thinking of a podium, but at the same time, I think finals are equally important. If you just look back at us, the senior world championships in Tokyo, Ireland went into 7 finals. I mean, that is remarkable. And here, there's one point. I mean, I wanted to add in the middle, but I kind of just forgot about it. There have been days when we have been thinking. I think we have all discussed this in office. We have all discussed this between us. Ireland has this whole theory about coaching the coaches. They got 900,000 euro fund that has gone in. I think that is something that India really needs to look at. Yes, you're spending on infra. Yes, you're spending on athletes. Yes, you're spending on competitions. Yes, you're spending on training them abroad, sending them over. I think if you can put in 100 crore fund, if you can put in a 50 crore fund, where you get coaches, coaches who have done a great job abroad, who have done and brought up athletes. If you can get those coaches to come down to this country and then coach the coaches here, I think that would be a step up. And I think every coach in this country who's put in so much of sweat, who's put in so much of passion into these junior athletes, I think they would love to be coached by some of the greats of coaching, and that would really, make a shift, make a difference. I think that is the most important part. That even Odisha has a host who's spending so much on infrastructure, even AFI, and I think AFI is probably thinking about it. It's not that we get these ideas. I mean, there are much more experienced people out there. So I think if the coaches, some of the best, come down to this country and coach the coaches in a very nice policy, I think that would be excellent.
एंड वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन सर, आप एंड सुशांत लास्ट एक वीक से भुवनेश्वर में हैं। आप लोग ने पूरा मतलब 5 दिन देखा एथलीट्स को compete करते हुए सुबह से शाम। क्या आप दोनों आपस में बात करते हैं, या आपको, या आप, अगर आपसे सवाल पूछ रहा हूँ कि कोई एथलीट या कोई 2-3 एथलीट जो हाँ लगा कि देख के यार ये है कुछ आगे जाके वर्ल्ड, मतलब नॉट एशियन लेवल, वर्ल्ड लेवल पे, सीनियर लेवल पे अच्छा कर सकता है? डू यू गाइस मतलब डिस्कस ये सब चीजें? आपने करी बात अपने आपस में, या आपने खुद देखा कुछ कि लगा कि हाँ ये कुछ है इस एथलीट में?
I think every evening, when you sit down and kind of go through the day, you always discuss athletes. And Deepika is one. Neeru Pathak, I think we've discussed so many times. I think she would have easily picked up 4 golds here. Something went wrong with the shoe. I think she bought a new pair. That's what I didn't
Yeah.
know this. I mean, Sushant told me that there was a problem because in the 4x400 relay, UP wasn't there. So I was asking what happened to UP when you had such a great runner in Neeru. Then why wasn't she there? So I think Sushant's answer was that she bought a new pair of shoes, which kind of cut her skin up somewhere on the toe or somewhere. I don't know. But and then because she is their best runner, so they kind of opted out of the competition. I mean, just imagine an athlete at the national junior level taking home the 200 gold, the 400 straight gold, taking the 4x400 mixed relay gold, and then taking a 4x400 um, a women's relay gold, which didn't happen because she didn't participate. So UP had to go out. But these are the athletes, and then you had Pratik Maharana. I think if you really
Yeah.
look at the finish of Pratik, don't look at the start, because I think the start was still slow if you really think about it. But I think the finish was excellent. Sometimes when you look at sprinters and when you see their finish, you look at the hand movement, the outward chest that comes out, and the way the thighs are pumping. I think when you look at all of those aspects, you know that you have somebody who's in the making. He may not be a complete product. He'll not even be a complete product in 2 to 3 years unless he goes abroad and gets a huge amount of competition. But these are the athletes you normally talk about, that, it'll be interesting to see where they reach in the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, and thank you so much, Sandeep sir, for joining the show. And stay tuned for all the
I
latest
have a
updates
question. I
from.
have a
Yes, yes,
question for you, Subhashish. What
yes, sir.
happened? You were meeting Sachin. Kya bola Sachin?
Yes, सचिन सर, अभी जस्ट मैं अब यहाँ पे जेल स्टेडियम में आया था। सचिन यहाँ पे वार्म अप थ्रो कुछ कर रहे थे, तो मैं सडनली उनसे मिला, उनसे बात की। आप काफी 10-12 मिनट उनसे बात हुई कि मतलब ही स्पोक अबाउट ऑफ सीजन वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप। आई थिंक वो 30 सेंटीमीटर से उनका जो वो ब्रॉन्ज और वो फोर्थ फिनिश का वो लेवल
Yeah.
रह गया था, उससे क्या वो सोचता है नहीं सोचता इन चीजों पे। और एक काफी चीज पे बातचीत की सचिन से मैंने, काफी अच्छा लगा। लेकिन एक काफी टाइम बैक होता है ना कि फ्रेश सचिन को देखने मिला। काफी काफी कंपटीशन उसका लंबा लंबा चल रहा था, ये
True.
बैक टू बैक नेशनल, एशियन, वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप, वर्ल्ड कॉन्टिनेंटल टूर
Yeah.
ब्रॉन्ज। बट एक अब शायद एक सचिन मतलब सब कुछ वो छोड़ के ऑफलोड कर रहा है अपनी चीजों को। नेक्स्ट ईयर उसने बोला है कि मतलब ही विल पार्टिसिपेटिंग, हिज मेन टारगेट विल बी एशियन गेम्स एंड कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स।
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you,
Okay, thank
Subhashish.
you so much, sir, and yeah, stay tuned for all the latest updates from Indian track and field. Good night and goodbye.